In 2005, Dave Chappelle was at the peak of his powers and was offered a $50 million contract to continue his groundbreaking series, The Chappelle Show on Comedy Central. Instead, he left in the middle of filming and hopped on a plane to South Africa, hoping to leave show business forever. From the outside, this move made absolutely no sense. But when you hear out his reasons and the insane life that he led during these years, it all starts to put itself together. Dave Chappelle had been doing stand-up since he was just 14 years old. On his first open mic, he let his family know that he was performing, so his mother showed up and brought Dave's grandmother with her too. Chappelle said, "I told my grandmother, you might hear me say some things that you might not want to hear your grandson say." And she said, "Just relax and do that stuff." I went up there and I was scared. I used to look at my feet when I started, and I said the first joke looking at my feet and they laughed. And then I looked up like, holy. I was 14, probably looked like I was 11. I was telling jokes about Jesse Jackson running for president and an off-spaceship landing in a black neighborhood. This was the beginning of a lifelong love of stand-up, as well as the performing arts in general. He went to theater school where he studied acting. Chappelle's parents had split during his childhood, so he divided his time between his mother in Silver Springs, Maryland, and his father in Yellow Springs, Ohio. When Chappelle was 18, he decided to follow his dream in stand-up and acting and moved to New York. It was here where he played an amateur night at the Apollo Theater and realized that things were not going to be as easy as he had anticipated. He said, "When I say I got booed off stage, I still remember that boo. I'd never been booed off stage before, but I just remember looking out and seeing everybody booing. Everybody, even old people. I was like, who boos a child pursuing his dream? This is the meanest crowd in the world." Although this may sound counterintuitive, getting booed to oblivion was a pivotal moment in Dave Chappelle's development. Chappelle said, "And that was the best thing that ever happened to me. The best thing because before that time, I had never bombed, let alone got booed off stage. That night was liberating because I failed so far beyond my wildest nightmares of failing. It was like, hey, they're all booing. My friends are here watching, my mom, this is not that bad." After that, I was fearless. Chappelle gradually progressed through the New York comedy circuit in the 90s and also landed some important acting roles. His first big break was in the Mel Brooks movie Robin Hood, Men in Tights. He also got decent parts in 90s movies such as The Nutty Professor and Con Air. While Chappelle performed at the Boston Comedy Club in Greenwich Village, he became friends with the doorman Neil Brennan. Brennan was an inspiring writer and regularly pitched jokes to Chappelle, and in 1998, Chappelle starred in a movie called Half-Baked, which he wrote alongside Brennan. Chappelle was also set to have his own sitcom on Fox in 1998, which was about Chappelle's life as a stand-up in New York. However, things didn't go to plan and he saw the ugly side of the entertainment business. According to Chappelle, "They fly me out for a creative meeting. I'm in a room full of white people and they proceed to tell me why we need more white people on the show, so it can have a more universal appeal. This network built itself on black viewers, and what they're saying is white people are narcissistic. They don't want to watch black people. They want to watch themselves. It tells every black artist no matter what you do, you need whites to succeed." Shortly after this incident, Chappelle's father died and he considered leaving show business altogether. He was due to star in a movie alongside Norm Macdonald called Screwed and tried to get out of it. In an interview about this time, Chappelle said, "I didn't know Macdonald that well in the 90s. And then when my dad died, I had to do a movie with Norm and I tried everything to get out of that movie because I was inconsolable. I couldn't get out of it. And working with him was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. It was like he was the right guy at the right time." Working with Norm on this movie reminded him why he loved comedy. "He just made me laugh. It was wistful and amusing. You know how Norm is. You never knew if he was setting something up or not. We were just hanging out and all of a sudden it'd be like this punchline out of nowhere, but it started to become like work was like a church I'd go to. I couldn't wait to get to work and just hang around this guy." In the early 2000s, Dave had finally made it when Comedy Central offered him his own sketch comedy show, known as Chappelle's Show. Chappelle was the star of the show and wrote sketches alongside Neil Brennan. The program was unsurprisingly controversial. One of the most outlandish sketches was a white supremacist who was blind and didn't realize that he was black. A review for the first series read, "At its best, the show is outrageous and hilarious at once, as in the profile of a blind bigot who doesn't realize he's black. We're willing to tolerate some inconsistency if Chappelle can resist the temptation to congratulate himself on his controversial material." One of the most divisive sketches on the show were about slavery. In an interview with Rolling Stone at the time, he said, "There's only two ways you can deal with slavery. You can ignore it and hope it'll go away, or you can address it. I choose to address most things with humor. You can't recover from a problem that you aren't willing to acknowledge you have." Not only was Chappelle's show doing well, It was lifting the cable channel Comedy Central out of obscurity. Alongside South Park and The Daily Show, Chappelle's show was making it the go-to channel for late-night entertainment. An article at Entertainment Weekly said, "Remember when Comedy Central was a joke? When the cable channel's biggest draws, its only draws really, were Benny Hill reruns and stand-up comics making airplane food jokes in front of the Improv's red brick wall? Look who's laughing now." Chappelle, as you might have expected, should have been on cloud nine. However, his fame and fortune had come with its downsides. After 2 seasons, Chappelle now had legions of fans, some who he didn't particularly care for. The Sacramento Bee had reported on a comedy gig Chappelle did in 2004, which read, "Dave Chappelle got so angry with the crowd Tuesday night at Sacramento's Memorial Auditorium that the stand-up comic walked off the stage for nearly 2 minutes. Upon his return, he told the audience, 'You people are stupid.'" He wasn't so much heckled, but an audience member kept shouting out one of his catchphrases. In his legendary parody of Rick James on The Chappelle Show, Dave would repeatedly say, "I'm Rick James." And this is what this audience member repeated. It was clear that this wasn't the first time this had happened. Chappelle shouted at the audience, "This stand-up is the most important thing I do, and because I'm on TV, you make it hard for me to do it. People can't distinguish between what's real and fake. This ain't a TV show. You're not watching Comedy Central. I'm real, up here talking." Within this rant, Chappelle also said that the show involved working long hours and he was unable to lead a normal life. Nonetheless, Chappelle had signed a $50 million contract for 2 more seasons, which was way too much money to turn down. May 2005 was when Chappelle got working on the 3rd season. For one of the shows, Chappelle had the idea of a skit involving a black pixie. This pixie appears to Chappelle in the show and urges him to behave in a more stereotypical fashion. The pixie is dressed in blackface and is a minstrel-like caricature. When filming the sketch, Chappelle was getting laughs, but not the laughs he wanted. A white member of staff was laughing at it, but in a way that made Chappelle feel uncomfortable. Speaking about this incident, he said, "It just raised an interesting question to me, which I was already wrestling with in the first place. The sketch wasn't that bad. It's actually funny. It was a pixie. It was me dressed in blackface who would pop up anytime a person felt the pains of racism, which is a tough trick to pull off. It's not a bad sketch, but hearing the wrong laugh while you're dressed that way, it makes you feel shame." This, among many other incidents, led to Chappelle's shocking next move. In the middle of producing season 3 of his incredibly successful show, he abruptly left production. Not only that, he flew to South Africa. Chappelle remained completely silent about what happened, so the media started to speculate and fill in the gaps. Some people thought, like many entertainers, Chappelle suffered from a drug addiction. Others thought that he simply had a nervous breakdown. It was suspected that he had checked into either a rehab or a mental health institution while in South Africa. Eventually, on a sandy beach in the South African city of Durban, Chappelle gave an interview with Time magazine to quell the rumors, saying, "Let me tell you the things I can do here which I can't at home. Think, eat, sleep, laugh. I'm an introspective dude. I enjoy my own thoughts sometimes, and I've been doing a lot of thinking here." And while South Africa seemed like a random place to go, it turns out that he had a friend there named Salim who allowed Dave to live with him and clear his head. Chappelle explained, "There were things that overwhelmed me, but not in the way that people are saying. I haven't spent any of the money. All that stuff about partying and taking crack is not true. Why do I live on a farm in Ohio? To support my partying lifestyle?" Without naming people, Chappelle said that he was surrounded by yes men and people who were using him, saying, "If you don't have the right people around you and you're moving at 1,000,000 miles an hour, you can lose yourself. Everyone around me says, you're a genius, you're great, that's your voice, but I'm not sure that they're right." During this interview, Chappelle revealed another layer of his personality that wasn't really exposed to the public. At the age of 17, Chappelle converted to Islam and kept this part of his life very private. He said, "I don't normally talk about my religion publicly because I don't want people to associate me and my flaws with this beautiful thing. And I believe it is a beautiful religion if you learn it the right way. It's a lifelong effort. Your religion is your standard. Coming here, I don't have the distractions of fame. It quiets the ego down." Without Chappelle's consent, Comedy Central released season 3 of Chappelle's Show by using unreleased material, and Chappelle referred to this as a bully move. Dave Chappelle did return to comedy many years later, but by then he got to work on his own terms and was in a much better place in his life. In an interview with David Letterman, he said, "Listen, here it is. Technically, I never quit. I'm 7 years late for work." While Chappelle's Show left David with many bad memories, there would eventually be a happy ending. In 2020, Chappelle's Show was streaming on Netflix, but because Chappelle had left, he was not getting a cut of the royalties from it appearing on the streaming service. In November of that year, Chappelle posted on Instagram, "I'm begging you, if you ever liked me, if you ever think there was anything worthwhile about me, I'm begging you, please don't watch that show. I'm not asking you to boycott any network. Boycott me. Boycott Chappelle's Show. Do not watch it unless they pay me." And 4 months later, in February of 2021, Chappelle had an update. He posted, "I asked you to stop watching the show and thank God Almighty for you. You did. You made that show worthless because without your eyes, it's nothing. And when you stopped watching it, they called me and I got my name back. And I got my license back and I got my show back. And they paid me millions of dollars. Thank you very much." Make sure to subscribe for more.